This has been it's been pretty funny for me to see. Assassin's Creed Shadows has probably been one of the most controversial games on Twitter. And it's been one of the most controversial games on YouTube also. People have just in general been really, really angry about this game. Like, just in every direction, with everything. It's been insane. Dragon Age the Veilguard? No. The difference is that Dragon Age the Veilguard... So, here's how it's different. Dragon Age the Veilguard, everybody pretty much agreed that it was garbage. Assassin's Creed Shadows is better than Dragon Age Veilguard. I would say it's just in every way better. It's not way better. It's not an amazing game, but it's better than Dragon Age. And so now you have people that are like, it's kind of okay, so it makes it a much more controversial topic.
Despite AC Shadows being officially released, the modern audience types are not actually any happier about this game. As a matter of fact, it looks like they're getting even more upset, considering that they're the ones who've been ardently defending this game and Ubisoft. You'd think that, you know, they might hush up and be playing the game that they've been advocating for this whole time. But no. Instead, we're met with posts like these. I'm concerned about my friend. He's playing Yasuke Simulator. Okay. A quick side note for anyone not familiar with Yasuke Simulator.
Are you
it's
kidding
just
me?
a little indie game that someone made
W
as a
game?
complete
Yeah.
joke towards Ubisoft and AC Shadows.
Yeah, it's obviously
like, the
a fucking
developers
meme.
literally call themselves history-accurate developers. And the release date is the same release date that AC Shadows has, that being March 20th, 2025. And yeah, to my understanding at least, the game's
Total
just a
meme
silly,
game.
janky game and is nothing to be taken seriously. Just people memeing around and poking fun at Ubisoft. Alright, now back over to that post, once again titled, I'm concerned about my friend. He's playing Yasuke Simulator. So apparently there's an AC Shadows parody game called Yasuke Simulator from History Accurate Developer Studio.
Oh.
My friend is playing it at the moment, and I'm pretty worried he's going down the right-wing/reactionary pipeline.
Fighting Cowboy had a crash out. I'll watch that. If you guys remind me to watch it, I can watch it after this.
From what I've Googled, only chuds are talking about the game.
Only
but
chuds.
when I checked,
bro, that's like one of those words that, like, as soon as I see somebody use that word unironically, I'm like, uh-oh, we're dealing with a retard here. Uh-oh. Oh, here we go.
Steam and some random streamer on Twitch, it doesn't seem to be bigoted, at least not blatantly.
Yeah.
Has anyone played it? Should I be concerned? I love how this person tries to insult people as being
I love how these people try to police the behavior of everybody else. Like, that's what I find to be very annoying, is it's the behavior policing and the, I'm going to tell you what to do. I don't think that they understand how unpopular it is to make your entire personality telling other people what to do. Yeah, hall monitors. It's so annoying. If you want to play the game, that's fine. But, like, sitting around trying to, like, guilt people into not playing it or into playing it or telling them what they should think, it's so exhausting for just a normal person to think.
Chuds, saying that only chuds are talking about the game, as this person is actually talking about the game via their own post. This lack of self-awareness is not the only thing I'll be showing you about this person. There's another great example of this person having a massive lack of self-awareness, but we'll get to that after we finish this post.
What a
and so
surprise.
It's also hilarious to me that they accuse other people of being like right-wing/reactionary simply because they'll play some AC Shadows parody game. Hey, if you parody AC Shadows, if you mock Ubisoft, you're right-wing or reactionary. What kind of loser actually thinks like that? It's such terminally online and brain-rotted behavior.
I think the reason why it's really weird is the fact that it's the fixation around trying to control what other people are doing and what their preferences are. I think that's really where the problem comes from, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people get frustrated, is that people are, I think, fatigued from being told what they need to like and what they need to think. That's really it. Like, I mean, it's literally that simple. And I think this is the case also with, like, anti-woke people. Like, and I think that's what I saw the Fighting Cowboy clip. We'll watch it after this. But, like, a lot of people are just tired of being told what they can and can't play and what they can and can't like. Just in a very general sense. It's not anything specific to any specific game. It's just in a general sense, people are tired of this.
Types of people constantly pretend as if they're these wonderful revolutionary leftists, while their form of leftism is simply defending giant corporations and being the biggest bootlickers that they can possibly be. The top comments here are not any better. For example, this one saying, call him out. Yo, why are you playing the racism game? Oh my gosh.
The racism game.
People are so weird.
And the reason why, it's like, the way that you solve this and the way that you overcome this is that you never engage with it. Because people like this, if you engage with them in an honest way, you automatically lose, because those are people who basically they're not trying to have a conversation. They're not trying to explain anything to you. They're not trying to do anything other than tell you what to do. And so the solution for that is very simple. You just simply do not play the game.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, it's a bad faith argument. Yeah, you're basically, because if you accept that premise, you've already lost.
I asked him immediately. He claims it's a parody
it's
of
like,
Ubisoft.
why have you stopped beating your wife? When have you stopped beating your wife?
But then it's literally called Yasuke Simulator. So what? What the frick? Why are you so pressed over that title? Look at this exchange. Yeah. Comment says, how is the game racist? Yasuke uses assault rifles for one. How does that make it racist? Genuinely asking as a black person myself.
Yeah.
Do you think assault rifles existed in Yasuke's time? Or do you think they added them in for reasons? That still doesn't make it racist. Using assault rifles isn't really a black stereotype. Modern audience.
Yeah, it's not. Yes, it is. Oh, here we go.
Redditor responds saying, lol, yes it is. Gun violence is largely attributed to black people in the US, and putting guns like that in a game dedicated to a black man in the 1500s is a pretty clear setup. Not to mention it's full of Asian stereotypes as well. And they get a response that reads, I think you linking shooter elements to racism is more racist than the game itself, honestly.
Yeah, I don't really think that's, I mean, like, yeah, there's, I mean, if you go on like Poll or something like that, or you go on like another really like, a racist place on the website, on the internet, yeah, you're going to have people that think that for sure. But like to act like this is some kind of like prevailing opinion. No, absolutely not.
Oh, by the way, this subreddit is a discussion subreddit specifically for the Gaming Circle Jerk subreddit. If you don't have the misfortune of being familiar with the Gaming Circle Jerk subreddit, essentially it's filled with these modern audience types. But anyway...
Do you guys agree with me, by the way, about like what I'm saying about how people just don't like being told what to do? Because I feel like that's really what the problem is more than anything. People are just fed up with being told what to do. Like in any direction. Stop trying to micromanage my life, to micromanage my interests, to tell me what I need to enjoy. Just stop.
It's the modern audience OP from that post, the one who's all upset at their friend for playing Yasuke Simulator. I'd mentioned that they had another...
And it goes for liking and disliking things. The problem is trying to force that view on other people.
Great example, hilarious example of their lack of self-awareness. And that's 8 days ago they made this comment saying... Who gives a dang about culture war but culture warriors? There's hundreds of millions of players worldwide coming from cultures from all over the world. A huge amount of them are children, often younger than 10. A lot of them are people with untreated mental issues or people fed with political agenda. If you want to find some garbage opinion, I guarantee you will find it. If you look for this stuff only to get outraged about it, you are part of the problem. But traditional media and influencers start to co-opt these terrible takes because they bring hate clicks. It's just profitable to make a clown of yourself, to make a clown out of yourself. Spaces like Kotaku in Action and Gaming Circle Jerk both contribute to this degeneracy. So on one hand,
I think this, by the way, I think this is an accurate post. I do think that, like, obviously people care about this kind of stuff because they feel like this type of thinking has gotten into gaming in a way that's not organic. And they feel like it's not really representative of what players want. It's basically just a top-down ideology that's being distributed to people, regardless of whether they like it or not. But I think in general, like, yeah, most people just want to play a good game. Like, they don't really care about a lot of the social messaging, etc. People will look past that, or they will not care about it if the game is good. This is very true.
Some credit, they called out the Gaming Circle Jerk subreddit. But 8 days later,
they want to influence who you like, what content you interact with, and what interests you, what you're supposed to have. It's fucking annoying. Yeah, it is. It's like these people are just so controlling. They're so controlling. And it's just insane for me to see it happen. And this is why they've alienated so many people.
On the discussion subreddit for Gaming Circle Jerk, literally making a clown out of himself with a terrible take. Like doing what 8 days ago they were trying to call out.
Of course.
I just don't understand how people are like this. I think some people just can't handle being online so much. Like, some people can be online.
Well, the problem, so this is the issue, is that they categorize everybody who disagrees with them as culture warriors, and then they categorize themselves as just having the right opinions. And it's not a culture war because they already presume that they're accurate about everything that they think. So like it's basically it's a diminutive term that they use for people that agree with them, but they don't realize or accept that it also applies to them.
All day and they're totally chilling.
One thing that you'll notice with a lot of people on the internet, and I think this is a general thing, is that people try to conceal their intentions by using different vocabulary. And they try to make it sound like, oh, I'm not doing this, or oh, I am doing this, with vocabulary and different words that they're trying to like replace with each other, right? It's like euphemisms and, you know, like kind of trying to make things sound worse or better than what they actually are.
But some people, like this person perhaps, they just suffer from so much brain rot. Like, this sort of person really needs to go outside, get some fresh air. And on that note, speaking of people like that, let's hop over to journalism, as we've got an article from Forbes.
Oh, God.
Paul Tassi of Forbes. You probably heard of the guy.
Course.
Earlier today, he released an article titled, "It's abundantly clear the Assassin's Creed Shadows controversies are nothing." He writes, now that Assassin's Creed Shadows has launched and players and critics have gotten their hands on the game, they've discovered something. This is an Assassin's Creed game. Wow, no way. It's fine, even pretty good, but this is simply nothing out of the ordinary for the series, even if many would have you believe otherwise. The narrative about the game was drowned by social media accusations of it being woke by using Black Samurai Yasuke as one of its two leads.
Yeah.
And while that drama farming was always ridiculous, it is even more so when you play the game and realize that there's nothing remotely controversial about any of this. His inclusion, how he's portrayed, or what liberties may have been taken with the character in a series where Leonardo da Vinci builds you a hang glider and you fist fight the Pope. This story...
Yeah, this is the continual argument that people like this make. And the issue, again, it's not that you took, you know, like creative liberties. It's that you took creative liberties in a way that everybody knows it's just for political messaging. Like, there's not really any political messaging while Leonardo da Vinci builds you a hand glider to fist fight the Pope, right? There's not like an overt, like kind of a, you know, a political ideology that's being pushed with that. But I think that whenever you have, you know, characters that are constantly, you know, like being included, like, I don't really think having Yasuke as like a main character is really a bad thing, really. But it's also fair to say that the reason why they probably added it was to kind of make the game more for modern audiences. Like, two things can be true at the same time. And the problem is that when people see the inclusion of these elements in games, they view these elements as immersion breaking, and they just don't want to see it that much. They just want to play a game for the sake of it being a game. And so that's it. It's politicized, exactly. I don't think they care. It's immersion. But what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with doing it or not doing it. But what there is wrong with it is for adding something into a game, and then instead of saying that, oh, well, it's just a fiction, they make the appeal to authority that this actually happened and like all these things were real. If they had never framed it that way, I don't think people would have gotten frustrated at all. Or they would have gotten a lot less frustrated. Pissing off Japan should count? Yeah, sure. I mean, and I think also, like, the way that people in Japan view this is, you know, I'm not really sure. I've been playing Assassin's Creed since it became a game. Shadows is the first game where they use a real historical figure as the main character. Now they need to appeal to actual history. That's probably, that's actually kind of a good point. Yeah, that's true.
Is not all that dissimilar to what we saw years ago with Tom Cruise's The Last Samurai, or more recently, our good friend, the Anjin Shogun. Two characters that drew far less controversy because, well, you know.
The implication is because they're white and they're not black and people are racist against black people. The reason why people were okay with The Last Samurai is, and also, by the way, Tom Cruise, everybody in Japan apparently loved Tom Cruise after The Last Samurai. The reason why is it's done in a way that people feel is respectful. At the end of the day, when you had as many fuck-ups that Assassin's Creed had with, like, Japanese culture, it's going to feel like it's disrespectful, even if it is to some degree accurate. And he wasn't a samurai. Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is that Tom Cruise, the story is him, like, basically telling the story of The Last Samurai, not that The Last Samurai in Japan was a white guy. That's not it. He was the witness. Yeah, exactly.
argue that Yasuke's story is more interesting because of his race and the dynamic that creates within Japanese society and his place and ascension within it. Okay, so he's obviously trying to just make some sort of blanketed racism accusation here regarding why Tom Cruise's The Last Samurai didn't get controversy and Yasuke in AC Shadows has. However, this is a false equivalence. The issue is not racism. The issue is the lack of respect for Japanese culture that AC Shadows has constantly depicted throughout its promotion, which has got a ton of backlash from the people of Japan, including the government of Japan, the National Diet, all the way up to...
One important component to this is that the main reason why Japanese people didn't like this actually didn't have a lot to do with Yasuke at all. It had to do with destroying the different places in Japan, like the sacred places in Japan, and being able to kill the different like citizens in the country. That was the main thing that was being discussed in that parliament meeting. It wasn't about was Yasuke real or not. I don't think they really care a whole lot about that. It's about the behavior that you're able to do while you're in Japan. Did they have Torigate too? Yeah, that's another one. Oichi got shit on in this game? Yeah, I mean, that was another thing, and that's another historical figure.
Japan's own prime minister condemning the game. On the other hand, he's bringing up The Last Samurai, Tom Cruise movie from not just years ago, but like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that.
I remember, dude, I remember this so well. I remember The Last Samurai came out. Oh God, I can't even say this. It's so fucking stupid. Okay. The Last Samurai came out, and me and my friend Lowell watched the movie. This obviously was the greatest movie we've ever seen. We go, and you know, like those magazines they used to send you, where it's like you can send away and like order like swords and like stuff like that, right? I think it was called like Bud K. Well, we get one of these catalogs, and we order a $30 katana off of one of these fucking stores. Yeah. And this is like 2003. Yeah, we were like, I think 12 or 13 or something like this, right? And we had decided that now we want to be samurai. And we're going to go out and we're going to train ourselves to be samurai. And we would go out in Lowell's front yard and we would cut up cardboard. And I remember we bought the sword. The sword finally arrived. Everybody went up to Lowell's house, and we took the sword, and we took it to a piece of cardboard, right? And we slice it, and the sword bends. And we're just like, and I'm like, and we just put the sword away. And we never talked about it again. That was it. Cardboard wins once again? Yeah, it did. That was it. Sounds like a bad form? Yeah, it was. You should have trained more? Well, I mean, to be fair, I actually did find another sword that was way better than that one. But the first one that we got was so bad, and we were just like, it was so bad. What do you expect for $30? We're like 12. Like 11, 12, 13 years old. We don't know like the type of steel. Like, I don't know how much a katana is. I mean, like, why the fuck would I know that? Do you still have the sword? So I don't know where it is. I know it's in my house, but I don't know where in my house it is. Because I asked my mom whenever she was still around, and I was like, where the fuck did you put my sword? Because I swear to God, I found a legitimate fucking katana in like the woods, straight up, and it was an amazing weapon. I had this for pretty much like my entire time growing up. I would take this katana with me everywhere, including school, which was a problem. And so anyway, I was like, oh, this is like a fucking Joan of Arc or something, right? Or something. You're a chosen one, exactly. And so my mom hid it because we kept cutting things up with a katana, right? Obviously, this sword. I don't even think it was a katana particularly. And she hid it from me, and she forgot where she fucking put it. And I've been looking every like 6 months. I will start trying to look for this sword. I still haven't been able to find it.
And that's a movie which you can look up online. Yeah. Apparently, people in Japan actually did like that movie. I've got some
good memories of that movie.
They pointed out some historical inaccuracies with it, of course, saying that like Hollywood was being Hollywood with some of the things in that movie. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, It showed a great respect towards the Japanese culture and depicted the samurai as very noble people, Japanese people as very hardworking, noble people. And for the most part, from what I've seen online, the people of Japan like that movie. At the very least, they didn't find it to be highly disrespectful like they have AC Shadows. So once again,
I think also another subtext of this is that back then you didn't have the amount of social messaging. Like, I bet nowadays, if they released The Last Samurai again, you probably would have Malders. But like it wouldn't be like serious. But like I think that the internet does definitely give like a a fucking loudspeaker to Malders.
This is an issue about respect or lack of respect towards the Japanese people.
Yeah.
This is not an issue of racism, despite what some gaming journalists and or modern audience types on social media would have you believe. That's another thing I find ironic. They constantly go on about like being against racism, but they're the ones propagating this racist narrative the most. And as a matter of fact, if we play their game, like if they want to talk about racism, I find it very suspicious how they constantly diminish the critiques and concerns of people in Japan about this game. They never seem to...
Well, the thing is that I have never met people that are... Like, actually, that's not true. I have met people that are more racist than this. But the people that get hyper fixated on race, have you guys ever noticed about how the horseshoe theory comes around and they actually become racist? Have you ever noticed that? Because I see it all the time.
Acknowledge that stuff. Apparently these...
I disagree. Last Samurai coming out today would have Christopher Nolan levels of success, even more so than whenever it came out originally. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I mean, we can't really know. But I think, honestly, and here's another thing, is like that article that was being written about the Assassin's Creed Shadows controversies not mattering. We don't know that because you don't have a use case that you can compare it to. So, like, for example, if Assassin's Creed Shadows just went with like your traditional John Shadows, and it is, like middle-aged Japanese male samurai. And then you can also play as maybe a female ninja or something like that. If you had that as the main character, yeah, John Creed, exactly. I think it probably would have done better. I do, because I do think that the controversy did alienate more people against it, and it was an overall negative. And this is always what the comparison is. It's not the comparison as to like whether it was successful or not. I think that an Assassin's Creed game being successful was a foregone conclusion. But it's about the degree of success and whether that degree was compromised by decisions that were made. You see what I'm saying?
holier-than-thou virtue-signaling types who claim to be against bigotry
like getting a 7
don't
instead
actually
of a
care
9.
about bigotry when it's towards Asian people. Now, of course, they may try and deny that, spin it some sort of way, but their actions do speak much louder than their words. And for years now...
I do think, by the way, there is this really weird thing that happens online where people think that racism towards, I don't know if it's really just Asians, but it's also Indians and maybe in one other group of people that I can think of. Racism against that group of people is like seen as more okay than racism against like, I don't know, different groups of people, right? Indians or Asians. Yeah, it's Indians and Asians that really get farmed a lot. And I find it to be very, I mean, the fact is, nobody alive today was alive during slavery. Thousands of people who are alive today were sent to internment camps. So I think if we're talking about structural, systematic racism from the government directly, I'd say Japanese kind of got fucked over there. They did. Those groups are seen as privileged, though? Yeah, I think that's what happens. Arabs as well? Yeah, I mean, it depends. Arabs, it's like very hit and miss about like how people like, whether people are going to be like racist against that group or not. According to Doge, there were some people alive that experienced slavery. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, Dracula.
Now, we have all seen what those actions are, or in some cases, what those lack of actions are. Mm-hmm. Paul Tassi concludes his article with two paragraphs, the first one reading, I've seen some pivots to other woke aspects, which are things like the option to form non-straight romances with characters, an optional path. To me, this speaks not to how games have become more woke, but how weird and nonsensical this sort of pushback has become.
I don't think that these people realize how unpopular things like being non-binary and being gay are in the world, in the greater scheme of things. When you're talking about like these types, and this is especially, I think that people are generally okay with being gay. Like it's not really as bad. But whenever you look at anything that is the non-binary sexual, deviation, so like if you look at trans, non-binary, or any other variation of that, you get into a extremely small percentage of people that have a genuine acceptance of this. People will tolerate it, and they are willing to deal with it in society and be reasonable and be nice. But I think a lot of people don't really agree with it a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if the majority didn't. And I think I'm guaranteeing you that the majority doesn't if you look at the entire world. So I think that what happens is that people spend way too much time in a liberal Western bubble, and they don't realize that things like being non-binary, this isn't something that's like normal for a lot of people. They don't understand what it is, whether you think that they should or not. They don't understand it. They don't get it. They don't think it's real, etc. So when you put something like that into the game, people see that and they're like, oh, well, this is political messaging of this weird thing that I don't understand. That's it.
Remember Mass Effect, the nearly 20-year-old series everyone likes that has been doing this kind of thing for eons?
Yeah.
Games haven't changed.
Yeah, and people don't want to learn about it. They don't want to be educated in it. They don't care about it. They don't want to hear about it. And that's it.
These commentators and fans which have become a pit of rage-baiting Twitter users and YouTubers and audiences making something out of literally nothing time and time again. Okay, so I'm not the most familiar with Mass Effect, but to my understanding, none of the people in Mass Effect are real, right? It's like complete science fiction stuff. Now, on the other hand, Yasuke was a real person, which is even a part of Paul Tassi's own argument. And so there's a huge difference in making fictional characters LGBT and taking a real person and then making them LGBT when they're...
This is a very good point. Yeah, changing a historical person's sexuality, I'm going to be honest, I don't think they should do that. Unless it's like clearly stated. Like there's a few guys like in history, like I even heard there's like evidence that maybe fucking Abraham Lincoln might have been gay, or like Walt Whitman or somebody like that historically was gay. Alexander the Great. I don't know. I could probably think of some more, but those are the first ones that come off the top of my head. And so if you make these guys gay or, bisexual or whatever, that's fine, right? I don't think people care. But like, I don't think that you should create fan fiction where you change a historical person's sexuality. I think it's weird. I do. I just think it's fucking weird.
There was no evidence to suggest that they were in fact LGBT. And changing a real...
Why not? The reason why not? Why is it... Why not? And that's a good question. Why is it? I think that people look at their sexuality as something that defines them as a person. And when you change one of those definitive characteristics, like someone's race, their age, their sexuality, like an identity characteristic, you're effectively co-opting and you're like invalidating part of this person's identity. And I think that's probably the reason, why even do it? I think that's a better reason. Why do something like that? But, and I'd have to think about that more, right? Because that's a good question. But it's altering history. It's revisionist. And I think that also another reason is that there's no reason to do that other than to push like a, new age narrative.
Person's sexual orientation like that is actually pretty creepy. So I think that's a really bad comparison, and I would hope that Paul Tassi can see why. He ends with this paragraph that reads, you can say, well, none of this matters, but it does matter.
It does.
Ubisoft is taking steps to protect its employees from harassment due to the hostility surrounding this release that can target not just the company, but individual developers. Again, for what? Because Ubisoft is using a historical figure to tell a story that has already been told similarly in other media with white guys? That the Japanese representation is a woman, not a Jinsekai Tsushima samurai?
Why is that a bad thing? If people want to play just like your traditional John Samurai, why is that bad? I like, because the premise of this is that this is somehow bad to want that. Why is it bad? I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's fine. How would they feel if it was done to a historically LGBT person to made straight? I think that's actually also a really great point, is that if you took a person who was historically gay or, like bisexual or lesbian, and then you allowed them to be straight and you changed their sexuality, I think people would be really bothered by it. Yeah, like you'd see so many Twitter threads with people that have 5 flags in their bio. They'd be losing their fucking minds over this. Yeah, they'd be mad as fuck. Yeah, exactly. So like, and we all know that.
This is utter nonsense, and discourse about practically any new game on the market has become so toxic that staying off the internet entirely is the only way to avoid it. But good luck with that.
Yeah.
That whole thing about Ubisoft protecting its developers from harassment comes off like such damage control. Seen no evidence of like actual Ubisoft developers being targeted by mass amounts of gamers in any way, shape, or form.
This is a point where I will slightly disagree and say that I do think that developers do get individually harassed. And, it's kind of like what I said before about January 6th. It's like, nobody supports that. Like, I mean, that's weird. Like, if you're going and you're harassing developers individually, like, I understand if a developer is making statements about the game and you're disagreeing with those statements on a public platform, that those statements are made in a public platform. I think that's very fair, right? That's totally okay. But if people are being harassed to the point where, like, you're calling their personal phone numbers, you're trying to interfere or impact their real life, this is a very unhealthy behavior that's disgusting, and nobody should support it. And I think anybody that does that, and this doesn't have anything to do with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Nobody cares about that. This is something that I would say about Tesla. I would say this about ActBlue. I would say this about Doge. I would say it about Costco. I'd say it about any of these companies. If you're systematically going through and harassing employees of a company because you don't like what the company's doing, you are engaging in a behavior that's disgusting. And it should be completely repudiated. That being said, is this really happening a lot? I bet it probably has happened, and it's totally fair for people to put their foot down on it. But criticism of a video game is not harassment.
People are targeting Ubisoft, the corporation, with criticism, and this game with criticism. They're not going after individual devs. And something else I mentioned in coverage about this exact topic from a few days ago was how Ubisoft attempted to say that their own developers are scared to mention that they work at Ubisoft. And I find it more likely that their developers are simply embarrassed to work at Ubisoft, given how terrible the reputation of Ubisoft has become. Not that
that's the real reason. Yeah. Like, people, like, back in the day, if you worked at Blizzard, people would ask you about, like, oh, well, are they going to add the Lich King? Are they going to add Illidan? What about Deathwing? Are they going to add them? Now, if you tell people you work at Blizzard, they're like, who was it that got the breast milk? Did that really happen? Like, what did they do? Like, was it happening to multiple people? How many people did it happen to? So, yeah, big surprise. People don't want to be at companies that have had their reputations fucking destroyed, and they don't want to be represented by them publicly, right? Yeah, who got the breast milk? Exactly.
Afraid of being harassed by massive armies of gamers. Once again, something that we have no evidence of actually happening. Furthermore, that whole thing is simply a PR statement from Ubisoft. Why would anyone just blindly believe some like PR statement from these corpos? Couldn't be me. Thankfully, couldn't be the sort of people that watch my videos too. Y'all are wiser than that, more based than that, and we'll leave it there for today.
I think
so
most
let me know what you
know
think about all this stuff. AC Shadows has officially released, and yet the modern audience types are still finding ways to get upset. If you enjoyed my coverage, please consider liking and or subscribing to the channel. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.
A lot is going down right now.
We'll watch this one too, but not yet. What I find to be so ridiculous and funny about this is the amount of posturing about it. It's like nobody's even interested about discussing the game and whether the game is good or not. I think there are some things about the game that are good. There are some things that are bad. But nobody's interested in discussing any of that. Nobody cares about anything about the game. It's just a bunch of like weird bullshit. I don't understand it at all. There's the video. Give it a like. I agree. I think it's just the Assassin's Creed, and this is also another component, is that Paul Tassi, I'm glad that he's finally admitting that all of the internet controversy does actually play a massive role internet controversy does massively affect the game. And I think if the game went with a safe protagonist rather than trying to make a statement with the protagonist, which is what I think that they were trying to make a statement with the protagonist. I do. I have both opinions. I don't care. I think Yasuke is cool and I like him in the game, but I also think that he was added into the game for a modern audience, like socio-political reasons. I think that's the reason why they did it. So like both of these things are true. Like I care. I understand this is what's happening, but I'm not like, that's not what's going to make me not play the game. 100% the reason. Yeah, exactly. Right. Nothing about Yasuke is cool in game. I don't know. It feels decent to play the character. I mean, it's a bit problematic, sure, but overall, that's just my opinion about it.